Welcome to Beer and Business. This week we have Rogers Healy, who is an entrepreneur here in Dallas, Texas, who's run a very significant and founded a very significant real estate company. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So first things first, we got to ask, we're here at the Community Beer Company, also founded by a Dallas entrepreneur, and what do you have there?
Let me take a sip. I have what's called the Bad Hombre, which that translates actually into yuppie beer for people that have no palate diversity. This is what you drink when you like Corona or Corona Light, and it's delicioso.
Well, I have my normal, which is the wit beer. I love Community Beer Company and what they make. So what I want to start with is, what led you to follow a passion in this particular sector, real estate? Because a lot of things we'll talk about today, people may have, all sorts of different businesses and different industries all around the world. Yours happened to be that. Where did you find the passion that connected a skill you had to real estate, and then you found fusion?
It's a great question, and most people are surprised when I answer that. I've never been passionate about real estate, and I saw an opportunity, and I think most entrepreneurs, the word passion to me, it's a difficult word, right? My passion is people. Like, I love being around people, seeing them happy, and that's my fuel. But my turning point, kind of my story with this, is I was a realtor in college, and 2018 is my 17th year in the business. And my first 4 or 5 years, I was just kind of lost and was making money, which was great, but it wasn't fulfilling. And I was dating this girl, for a week, and we became friends, and she was very passionate about politics. And I remember, I was not interested in pursuing a relationship, but I was so fascinated with her fascination with politics that I had to get to know her better. And I remember going to a Mavericks game, which is coincidental that we're right next door to their new headquarters, with her, and she was very adamant on this one subject that I literally was completely ignorant to. And I went home, and I had pulled over in an Albertsons parking lot on the corner of Midway and Northwest Highway, and I started bawling, crying. I was 25 or 26, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm a realtor, right? And nobody where I came from woke up wanting to be a realtor. It's like what you do when you can't find a job. And I just started doing some thinking, and I was like, what is gonna be my impact, and what's gonna be, my legacy in the business world? And I realized that I had an opportunity to go and open a company that was based on personality, and it was cutting edge. And so that's when I decided to open my own real estate company. I was 26. I had no background in management, and I still don't. Was always a leader, but didn't know how to run a business. So 2 weeks later, I signed up for my broker's test. I've learned a lot since, but yeah, my thing was never about real estate. It was about opportunity. And most of my successes in business with other companies and other avenues have been by recognizing a gap. And I think a lot of people that are wired like me, you grow up wanting to reinvent the wheel or invent the new wheel. And I just didn't have that skill set. And so I just was always a very observant person that realized, when somebody needed something or when something was needed, that was my entry point. So yeah, real estate just kind of fell in my lap, but really business was always an obsession and a passion, and real estate just happened to be the avenue that I've taken.
You mentioned something about it started in college. What were you doing in college that maybe led you that direction?
So in college, I was in a fraternity, and the saddest day of my life at that point was the day that I had to move out.
He's right.
You're right. We got to do something.
Absolutely.
You know what we got to do? Toga party.
And being a responsible person, especially in a fraternity where no one did anything except for a handful of us.
Toga, 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 toga.
I was the guy that was going to go find my roommates and me a place to live, and just made calls and did what most people do, just called realtors, and had no idea how much money they made. And ignorantly, the place that we ended up leasing, I just asked the guy how much money he made, and he told me, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I was 21, and it's still a lot of money, but back then that was getting the golden ticket to Willy Wonka.
'Cause I've got a golden ticket. It's ours, Charlie.
And so I decided to get my license, and that's when I learned persistence. Most people in real estate take their test maybe once or twice, but it took me 22 tries to pass it. So I had to get another job waiting tables during the process just to be able to afford my real estate exam. But yeah, my story was a little bit unorthodox.
What I think is interesting is you mentioned the gap, first of all, and then you also mentioned, a discovery point, like you were doing something else when you discovered something about the market, in this case, the compensation that can be gleaned.
Right.
what's really interesting, what you just said was 22 tries to take the test. Was it really 22, or is that just a little hyperbole?
It's truth. Like, I was really nervous. I wasn't nervous. I was really embarrassed, like, explaining that to people at the very beginning. But I think that for me, from a recruiting method and also just from being vulnerable and raw, it shows persistence and it shows a hell of a lot of ignorance. And it got to the point to where, like, at test 15, my mom was like, hey, would you go consider working for your dad? And I was like, hell no, I have to pass this test. But yeah, no, it was legitimately 22 times. And it took me like 6.5 months, and I went through my entire life savings to where I literally had to get a job at Papado's waiting tables to afford the real estate exam.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So now, hiring people, how has that experience influenced working with realtors that now you're, I suppose, bringing green into the business? Or do people need experience to join you? What sort of a crew do you have?
My method up until a few years ago was always like, if you're a good person, I'm going to hire you. And then I realized that not all good people have good work ethic. And so right now, I'm very proud.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm proud to say that everyone that works for me is a good person, but they have an X factor. And what changed my business was the movie Moneyball, and actually my best friend did the editing for it. When Moneyball came out, I watched this movie, and it was essentially, what I took away from it is you can still succeed in the business of sports by going after the guys that aren't on the all-star roster and people that were maybe on their way out.
Billy, we got 38 home runs and 120 RBIs.
Guys, we're still trying to replace Giambi. I told you we can't do it, and we can't do it. Now, what we might be able to do is recreate him. Recreate him in the aggregate.
And when I saw that, I was like, man, this is genius. Instead of going and trying to recruit, you know, heavy hitter Johnny, who's doing $50 million a year, I can go find someone that is doing $25 million a year that has maybe 10 years left but doesn't get any attention. And then on the flip side, I can go and recruit people that have never done real estate but had a background in waiting tables or car sales or bartending or whatever it is, to where you're just around the masses every day. And I did that, and I was able to strike gold with it. And by doing that with recruiting and interviewing, you avoid the entitlement of people that have tenure and people that have status, but you also breed a competitive environment with people that want to see other people succeed and have joy because they were at that point in their life not too long before. So yeah, it's a different model for me, and I've always shied away from people that have a title before their name just because they've sold a bunch of real estate. That's not my MO.
That's fantastic. I think I've seen Moneyball probably 22 times.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating movie, and I really became just entrenched with the methodology of, like me, I was like, my favorite type of realtor or salesperson is someone that has something to prove. And I was never good at anything growing up. I was loved, and I had, you know, a lot of opportunity, but was never first picked, never had the cute girlfriend, never had straight A's, never had A's. And real estate was an opportunity for me to go and prove the world that I was worth something other than just being like funny. And so I can find that in someone just in their eyes and in their story. And by showing them that it's not about what you do, it's how you do it, that's just a very joyous experience.
At the end of the day, you know, your realtors, whether they're the various types you mentioned, are salespeople.
Right.
And you talked about fostering competition, but we don't normally talk about this, but I am going to talk about something.
Yeah.
Your firm has been recognized as one of the best places to work in several different publications over the last 5 years. I mean, like, this is the best place to work. This is a top 10 place. You keep showing up on these lists and all of the great magazines that cover business here in Dallas. So you obviously have a good place to work, but you also mentioned competition among salespeople. And at the end of the day, you're running an organization where you got to generate sales to survive. How do you reconcile those two things, have that competition and be a great place to work?
Yeah, there's no egos allowed in my office. And the people that make next to no money versus the people that make real money, they're no different. And I think when you do that, it just encourages this, it's family oriented. And I'm a Christian, and my company's faith-based. And it's not fed down their throats, but by having that kind of spirit up there, people just have just a calming mentality. And I came from companies prior that it was cutthroat. My business is cutthroat. There's 30,000 people that do what I do in Dallas. So it's cutthroat. But by delivering the message of real estate with just a calming tone, just keeps it cool. And there's no drama, and people love each other. And I think because of that, it's the most incredible recruiting tool ever. But yeah, it's still a hard business, but when they're up there, they're safe. And I think that's what people need when they work in an office with salespeople.
As most entrepreneurs, go forward, they think back about mistakes. Give us an example of a mistake you made early on. That was a pretty big mistake, but it turned out well because of the way you handled it.
God, I mean, we can do a whole nother series on this. Hiring friends, not getting stuff in writing, being frugal when I had the ability financially to go and hire somebody that would have helped me, but it'd be like buying a sports coat. I can go buy a nice sports coat for $1,000, or I can buy 2 cheaper ones for $500. This one's gonna last for 15 years, the other ones might last for 6 months. And I was also driven by my ego. And I think for me, at the beginning, like status in a city like Dallas was a driving force, and with status, that meant like having a lot of people work for me, which meant that the brand would get diluted by bringing someone on board that was a social liability. So a lot of it was thinking with the wrong part of my head instead of thinking towards the long term. And I think like most entrepreneurs in my position, like I had to learn at the beginning, baptism by fire. But now I'm at a point in my life where I've got the energy. I'd rather focus it on something that means more, and I just would rather have wise counsel just advise me with big decisions. So yeah, just hiring wrong and mixing with my company socially, which is hard not to do still, but just being looked at as a respectful leader instead of a coworker. And I think when you can go and meld the comfort of being friendly but not their buddy with them respecting you for your ability, that's when it's cohesive in a way that just leads you to another level.
That's fantastic. One of the things that's really interesting about mistakes is mistakes can be such a learning environment. And some things like the instinct to hire the right people, that takes time because you have to go through a few of them and really experience and build your sixth sense of noticing work ethics, habits, and things that you don't see early on.
Yeah.
And you need mentors to get you through that. Other things you kind of wish, man, I wish I had a mentor that just kind of shared that with me the first day I walked in.
Yeah.
I could have used something like that. What are a couple things that you wish somebody had told you leaving SMU? You had discovered what this realtor made.
Right.
You said, I think there's a gap here. What are a few things, man, I wish a mentor came along to me and told me that day because I could have applied those.
So my problem is that at a school like SMU, and I went to Highland Park High School, I mean, it's littered with mentors. My problem is that I would listen, but I wouldn't hear him, right? Or I would hear him, but I wouldn't listen. And like my dad, who's my best friend, he's the greatest mentor ever. And there was never a time where he was like, let me sit. It's like he knew that the door was open if I ever wanted it, but really it reached a point like last year, I just went through a lot of crap in my personal and professional life, and I finally just was like, all right, fold. Like, what do I do? And even then, he referred me to his mentor, right? And it's changed my life. But for me, I was blessed in a sense that if I needed help, it was there, and I always knew that. But again, with an ego driving you, it probably cost me 10 years of my professional life and potential leverage, but I wish I would have just sat someone down and been like, hey, listen, I'm really good at these 2 things, and I legitimately suck at these 10 things, and then these 30 things, I just don't know what they are. And I knew the whole time, but I just tried to figure it out on my own, and a lot of my tenure in business the first decade was based off of my energy. And my whole company for a long time was like Rogers Healy and then like 3 or 4 people. And then there was turnover. And I finally was just like, okay, what am I missing here? And it was at like scaling. I didn't know what scaling meant. Structure, strategy, all these things that come with a business degree or business experience. I was an advertising major. I just thought that my energy and my ego would carry me. And it did, thank God, but there's no telling what would have happened if I would have sat down when I was 26 and said, what's a business plan? And what does it mean to have like money saved up? I just did it. But I think someone like me had to go through that in order to see the other side.
Most entrepreneurs on day one usually have 3 things. One, some sort of a vision or something that is conjured up about that's where I'm going, that market, that product, whatever that is. And then the other 2 things they have is guile and determination.
Yeah.
Determination to stick with it, and then just the guile to grind and push through it.
Yeah.
What things are you learning even now, going a decade into it, that you're like, wow, this past year I intentionally worked on this, and I'm glad I did?
Yeah. So every year I have a different word for business, and you mentioned guile and determination and vision. For me, at the beginning, it was ignorance. I never had vision till recent, and ignorance was a very blissful part of my existence because I literally just did not know so much, and that played in my favor for a little bit. Like I was saying, we have a word every year, and last year it was grit, and the year before it was growth, and all these things. And my word this year is peace, just because it's hard. It's hard running a business, and it's hard having salespeople. But I finally reached a point where I wanted to just enjoy what I was building and have peace with it, because it just beats you up. It's just about learning and realizing that no matter how hard I try, someone's going to have a bigger company than me. No matter how hard I try, someone's going to have more money than me. No matter how hard I try, someone's going to be wiser than me. But my objective in life now is just to be comfortable, not financially, but to be proud of who I am. And there's things that I've worked on outside of business that have given me that. And it just makes me realize that some people, that their identity is making tables or making beer or selling tables or selling beer. That's not what it's about, period. And that took me a long time to realize that when you leave the earth, your legacy hopefully is not selling tables or beer. It's the people that you impacted. And for me, that revolves around having peace.
At the end of all my case studies, I say, and I hope I left you better than I found you. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is because I believe that there's only one currency in the universe, and I think that's people.
Yeah.
And I share your foundational view spiritually.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I feel that I have a duty and a responsibility to trade in that currency of people. How do you maintain the peace that you have now, along with the obligation of sorts to keep growing the company, because the next person up that's come to your company wants to grow and develop and go places.
Yeah.
They don't want to just go on a flat sail at 5 miles an hour.
Last year, let me describe it, the Eagles are my favorite group of all time. And the first time I saw the Eagles was at the American Airlines Center 6 years ago. And I went by myself both nights. And the first night was one of the most amazing, emotional nights of my life. Glenn Fry, Don Henley, Joe Walsh, Timothy B. It was amazing. And I was their banter on stage is incredible. Their outfits, it's great. The next night, I left discouraged. I was it was the same banter, it was the same clothes, it was the same set, everything. And then I realized with what I've done with business is I was a performer, right? And I would go and teach these classes, and I would go and hire a new realtor. But after you've hired 200 people or you've taught 200 classes, eventually it's robotic. So I reached a point last year where I was just kind of over it. I was this is stupid. I don't need to teach another contracts class. I don't need to go and hire another agent. And then I had these guys that own my CrossFit gym. This guy, Dean, Spencer, and Sam came in and shared their story to my office, kind of what we're doing here. And I just asked them, I was what do you do when you have another person that comes in that's never done a back squat or never done a pull-up? Is it not get mundane? He's well, for them, it's the first time. And I was just wow, God, so good. And it made me realize that at some point, it's the first time I've seen Don Henley play the drums, or the first time I've seen someone try to do a pull-up. And for me, that shifted my mentality. And it just keeps me going. So for the new people and people that are green, it's a different opportunity. And it shifted my mindset, because I do think for entrepreneurs, it's hard. And it's hard when you think you've gotten to a place when it's not worth your time, but it is worth your time. And that is what makes a company like mine have staying power, is that I don't play golf, right? I don't drink beer on the weekday normally, but I care. And I think when you go and relay that message without being blatant with your verbiage, people notice that.
One of those Eagles lives here in Dallas in one of the most magnificent houses. Did you have the good fortune of selling that one?
No, but on another episode, I'll tell you my psycho story about the time I went to Don Henley's house in the pouring rain and dropped off a handwritten letter that I had written him. So, no, I did not sell the house yet. But Don, if you're watching, I would love to get a beer with you and talk about the future of your real estate and how I can help you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very bold. One of the biggest things that a business owner has is knowing. Knowing when a mistake is made, knowing what is the truth about a success. Did we luck into it, or did we really do something here? But mistakes is far bigger, because they can hide below the surface if as a leader, we're too oppressive, and then people are scared to tell us things. How do you counsel people to handle mistakes?
I'm not a compartmentalizer, and I think that people that are the most successful in relationships are the best communicators. So I just like to deal. And whether it's a legal issue or a personal issue or whatever it is that could come up, I'm not one to let it stew. And I think in this business especially, the people that jump ship are the ones that get resentful, and most of the resentment comes from a bad deal, maybe a friend that turned into an ex-client, whatever. So the short of it is just deal with it, right? And I'm the kind of guy that can't sleep at night if something's wrong. And so if I got something looming over my head, I'm gonna handle it. And the few times in my life where I haven't, it just cost me a good night's sleep or made me resent what I was doing. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna come up. You do something long enough, you get good enough at it, it's gonna come up. So just handle it as quickly as you can, as efficiently as you can, and ask for help with people that have actually probably been through something like that similar before.
Is that what you tell the people that work for you? This is how we handle mistakes here?
Yeah, and it's very, very comfortable, at my office. And if something comes up, people can pick up the phone, call me, or post in our Facebook group, or just ask a colleague for help. Like, what would you do in this situation? The beauty of it is most people that contribute to the helping side have been through it. And most of it say, like, here's what you shouldn't do. Here's what I did. And by like the process of elimination, you're led to a logical response.
Rogers, this has been great. If you had to give like 3 tips you've got tons of experience here, it's just really wonderful. But if you had to give 3 tips to entrepreneurs and business owners, what would they be?
So 3 tips to business owners and to entrepreneurs. The first one would be to enjoy the journey, right? To stop and smell the roses and realize that anybody that's got grit and persistence and any kind of resilience, you're going to make it, you're going to last, right? People are going to come and go in this business. Other businesses are going to open, but you're going to know the people that have the opportunity to go and actually last, and that's okay. Everyone needs competition, so enjoy it. When you hit milestones, celebrate it, not necessarily financially, but like literally go and celebrate it. But the way you celebrate it is what's appropriate. The second thing is do not freak out, do not worry. When stuff comes up, whether it's financial worry, legal worry, administrative worry, whatever it is, that's okay. Make sure you're surrounded by people that are going to help you out, that have been through something similar, and people that you trust. The third piece of advice I would give you guys is to be vulnerable. Be raw. It is okay to ask for help, but the way in which you do it is what's extremely, extremely crucial. Do not have a cry for help to the entire world and let them know that you're failing and you're struggling, but ask people in a way that still makes you credible. I used to do this. I used to go and be like, I don't know what I'm doing, who can help? It makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing. So ask for help, surround yourself with people that want to help you for the only reason other than they want to see you succeed, plain and simple. So ask for help, surround yourself with people that actually care and love you, and then on the flip side, when you can help somebody, do it only because you want to, not because there's something there for you.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you so much for being here.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much for these. People around the world are going to pick up these tips. Where you're running a t-shirt company in downtown Berlin, Germany, or you're running a real estate company here in Dallas, Texas, or if you've got a technology company in Silicon Valley, all of these tips apply to entrepreneurs everywhere. So thank you much for being here. We'll see you next time on A Beer in Business. I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc, and I hope I left you better than I found you.